Long ago in a faraway land, Reddit used to actually be the place to go and write whatever the hell you wanted to write. You used to be able to go to Reddit, post something interesting like a cat picture, and say, alright, that's good enough for me. But nowadays, when you're posting on Reddit, what ends up happening is usually a moderator reviews it, decides that your cat should be a different color, and then removes your post. Well, what if I told you that there was a dark side of Reddit? A side of Reddit where no one cared. What if I told you it wasn't even Reddit, actually? I'd like to introduce to you something that's on the dark web that I recently found out about called Dread. Dread is basically the dark web's equivalent of Reddit. Now, does that mean that people are doing really malicious things, such as, I don't know, selling really bad things? Looking at you, YouTube censorship? The answer you'll be looking for is yes, technically. That's exactly what's happening over there. However, through all of this chaos, there's some really cool subdreads, I guess you'd call it at this point. They're actually really interesting that pertain to cybersecurity, and I feel like if you just take a couple minutes, download a Tor, check out Dread, go on some of these subreddits, you'll find a lot more information than just going to r/privacy. And I'm going to show you today some of the examples that I've come across. So I've already downloaded Tor for you, so hey, there's that. But you can see here on this side that we're looking right now currently at their wonderful and great OPSEC category. Now, keep in mind, there's only certain things I can obviously show on a YouTube video, so there's that. So I've tried to open up some tabs that are pretty good because we don't want to come across some things. But anyways, I digress. I'm getting off topic. This is Dread. This is our OPSEC subreddit. You can see here, for example, that these are actually intellectual questions. Virtual machine suggestion to run Linux on. 20 comments. Let's take a look here. Just right off the bat, 3 days ago. Top one. Here's an actual question. And you could tell he's legitimate just by the icon he's using. What's your OS, your host operating system? Windows? Yes. Would you recommend running a Linux on VM or just setting up a Windows on VM? And making sure I'm using a different identity. Don't do it on Windows. GDID exposed Peter Stokes in this exact way to look it up. Look, 3 days ago. I'm aware. There's a way to harden Windows, though I'm not sure how useful it'd be. This guy just told you right off the bat. So does running Linux and Oracle VirtualBox seem like a smart idea or not? Obviously, this guy doesn't care at all, as this is literally his first post and the only times he's ever commented on, so he doesn't care about sounding stupid. And then the same guy even gives him more information to help him. Vets do not reveal all their tricks, believe me, I can tell you. They already have other ways that catch you hidden from the general public. Best OPSEC advice I can give you is consider Windows being compromised at any time when you're using it. Either use Amnesic OS or Tails OS or install Linux on your machine. Now, I've never heard of Tails OS until I literally came on Dread and I had to look it up. Sure enough, Tails. Avoid surveillance, censorship, advertising, Tails, and viruses. Tails uses a Tor network to protect your privacy online and help you avoid censorship. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. Why have I never heard of this? Well, needless to say, it's apparently a thing. And even so much so, you can see that they're even saying that it's recommended by Edward Snowden. If you look at the way post-2013 whistleblowers have been caught, it's clear the most absolutely important thing you do is maintain your anonymity to reduce the number of places in your operational activity where you can make mistakes. Tor and Tails still do precisely that. Quite interesting, if I do say so myself. But anyways, so you can see more or less that the information here that's being posted on this subreddit is actually legitimate and not just a bunch of BS. I've came across a lot of this. If we go to more of the OPSEC categories, you see here, beyond best practices, hardening my Unix/Kali virtual machine, anonymity stack against deep surveillance, mistakes we learn. And you can kind of see here on the headers, wake up call, mistakes we learned, darknet news. We go here and it's like, doesn't matter. Unix gateway doesn't trust the guest. There's no such thing as perfect anonymity. Okay, don't butcher me when I keep saying the word, okay? I suck at saying the word. All right. But you can see here, there's no real chance for a malware or something else to escape from the VM except in such cases. The guy literally points to the CVE of which it can actually escape. I find it hilarious as hell that these guys are just so direct. And then, of course, you have the people with their actual drop an entire just bamboozled turd on a comment section. This guy has 0 posts and just 2 comments, but with how much shit he's saying, you can actually tell he cares. Try finding that on Reddit. Try genuinely trying to find that on Reddit where all they care about is farming karma. This guy doesn't care about his karma. He's just posting. He wrote an actual book. So WTF. But it gets even crazier in this. So not only do people actually post interesting, well, messages on here to try and explain things and say encrypt your stuff, you can also see, for example, up here on this one that I was recently reading, mostly for vendors. I'm sure you can imagine what that means by vendors, but nevertheless, if you think you might get arrested for some stuff, turn off your phone immediately and it will remain encrypted and the police will need a warrant for the passcode. Now, it goes into obviously US specific laws such as the no to cell phone searches in Riley versus California and United States versus Wary. Yes, I probably butchered the name too, okay? Just, come on. But we can see here as well, legitimate discussions once again, talking about privacy. Did I just read Manscaped? I swore I just wrote Manscaped. There's no way. Manscaped. Do you manscape? Asking for a friend. What I like to do is flip the never mind. It really throws Ellie for a loop. Okay. I never mind. I'm not reading that one. Anyways, you can clearly tell that people do not care on what's being posted here in r/privacy, but there's really good posts to this. And on top of that, not only are there just posts, there's actually wiki pages. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not going to talk about the guy who decided to put cyan on a gray background, or let alone all the yellow that's making my eyeballs bleed, but obviously there's a lot of time to put into this, and something that I haven't been able to actually look into is in this specific wiki post on explaining OS and communications, it states Telegram, Signal, Session, and Discord are insecure and shouldn't be used. I'm personally curious as to why they're saying Signal shouldn't be used. I know why Telegram shouldn't. Session, never heard of, and Discord, we all know why you shouldn't, but I'm curious as to why Signal. Nevertheless, though, there's more information in here. So it explains the secure chat apps and why. Uses double ratchet algorithm to provide multi-end-to-end encryption, allowing messages to be synced securely across multiple clients, even if some of them are offline. Okay. Onion shares open source tool that lets you securely anonymously share files, host websites, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then we could go here inside secure and disposable email hosts. For some reason as well, I'm not sure if it was this one. Yeah, it is. It says Proton Mail is insecure and shouldn't be used. It's probably because Proton is corporate, if you will. You know, it's owned by a big company. That's my guess. Because if I look right here, it's like receive only anonymous disposable email. And like Proton Mail, for example, requires you nowadays to like link it to your phone number or link it to an alternative email address that's like aside from your main address. So like if you're creating a Proton email, then it'll ask you for like, hey, what's your backup email? This is a requirement. I just had it happen to me the other day when I was trying to create a BS email for investigating this sort of stuff. So whatever. Free email JS required. And by the way, Dread doesn't even require any sort of information to read any of this. You can just literally head to the Onion URL and then you're able to just read it all. There's no requirements on being forced to log in or register or nothing. That being said, probably put yourself behind a VPN on top of using Tor, but anyways, OS install guides as well. It links it. The phone installation guides I found particularly interesting. The most secure mobile phone is no phone at all. I found that funny. If you have to use a phone with Graphene OS seems reasonable. I find it quite interesting as well, by the way, that they actually approve of Graphene OS, but they don't approve of Proton Mail on the dark web. So you can tell at least that with Graphene OS, they actually care and it's not BS. And then of course they give the operating systems Unix, Kick Secure, the Tails project, Debian project, Para OS. Would you believe if I told you that they're all Linux based? Like, come on, who would have guessed? And then of course, you know, the virtualization and such. They do give a warning on VMware, however, that it says requires Tor security to be safer. I found that kind of funny, at least with VMware, because, I mean, you would think that they wouldn't, but sure enough. But it goes even further than that, because on this subreddit, or subdread, it gets weird saying it. You see here as well that people are asking, you know, how do I essentially make it even more secure and stable, especially in regards to this guy's Kali. And this guy straight up says, Kali isn't secure or stable. It's meant as a toolbox. You can install this shit that Kali comes with your Linux daily driver of choice. ISP concerns is a VPN. If you don't want your ISP to know that you're using Tor, to a bridge. So basically, you know, use a VPN to then use Tor. But hey, who am I? Primarily because your VPN logs whenever you use Tor. So one of the ways, for example, that you could get caught on the dark web is, or doing something stupid, which is how it was later on linked to someone else, is you, for example, use Tor while you're on, say, a public hotspot or on your own private. Then the company gets subpoenaed, hey, let me have this, or the warrant rather. I don't know the terminology, okay? Stop looking at me like that. And basically at that point in time, then they get all your data and your logs. Well, they're saying that if you have a VPN, they'll know, obviously, hey, this guy's on VPN, but they won't know what exactly is going on in that VPN. And if your VPN doesn't have logs, which hopefully they don't, then they also just have nothing on you. But that's why they're saying that, more or less. Once again, I did bring this up before in the past, so moving on forward. This right here is another, and I mean it, it's just extensive list after list after list. This is all their Bibles, their guides, their tools, everything pretty much from top to bottom. I took a look at some of the tools, for example. One of these that they recommended is Postal. I didn't even know this was on GitHub, but apparently it is. Postal is an email OSINT tool that provides valuable information on an email address. Okay, great. With Postal, you can easily answer several questions. Determine the name of the person who has the email. Check if the email is deliverable or not. Find out if the email is disposable or not. Identify the email is considered spam. And check if the email is registered on public platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, blah, 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 blah. So basically, you can tie everyone else into it. How did you find that? Literally, it's under their tools section. It's literally here. I was like, okay, or maybe it's up here. I don't know. It's somewhere in this area. But nevertheless, all this is here on a new Reddit alternative called Dread. And the only way to access it is through using your Tor browser. Now, I thought it was pretty interesting. I figure you might actually enjoy it too. I would highly recommend that you check it out. Maybe you might find something of interest. I know one thing's for sure. I've recently discovered that Tails OS is apparently the best operating system you can have with no persistence. And that is your go-to if you want to make sure everything's like bleak and dark. And then while you're at it, make sure that you're using Linux with full disk encryption on your main computer. And while you're at that with the full disk encryption, maybe make it as well so certain parts aren't persistent. But anyways, this is me trying to figure out how all this works. So I hope I helped you. And I guess till next time, if you liked the video, make sure you like it. If you disliked it, leave a dislike. And for now, have a wonderful rest of this new upcoming week. Take care, guys. Share it with your friends. Bye-bye.